Hi, Kathy, are you there? Your box is appearing and it's just a black screen, but as your name. No. Give her a minute. Well, are we live now?
Yes.
Amanda? All right.
No, you're not on, you're not streaming yet.
Why? It's 7:30. Stream away. Let me know.
It's broadcasting.
Okay. All right. Welcome to the November 2020 meeting of the Clifton Town Council. This meeting is being held electronically because of the COVID-19 pandemic that has been going on for a long time now. But as a result of the pandemic, early in the pandemic, the legislature of the Commonwealth of Virginia passed a new law to allow us to have electronic meetings instead of in-person meetings. So for the foreseeable future, until we get to probably stage 4 and governor pulls back the emergency and the town pulls back the emergency, we will continue to have meetings through Zoom. We have done advertising as appropriate, etc. And we've offered the opportunity to members of the public to make comments at the meeting, as we do during regular in-person meetings as well as on Zoom, and to register and watch the meeting, and also to watch the meeting on YouTube. So we're doing everything in our power to be as transparent as possible, to think about things like freedom of information so that everyone can see exactly what we're doing as we're doing it. And Zoom is, if anything, improving that because it's easy to access. And we certainly had robust participation. This month is actually a little quieter than previous months, which is a good thing, and maybe that bodes well for the future during the pandemic. The idea being that we really want to focus on the community and focus on the town, family, community, and thinking about Clifton. There's lots of other stuff going on in the region and the country and the world, maybe beyond our world, for all I know, in other planets. But at least as all that goes, for Clifton itself, that's our focus of this council, is what's important for the community without regard to these other external issues. And we want to continue to focus on that. And I want to thank the council for working so hard to work as a cohesive body, and for the council and the planning commission to not get caught up in all of that and not get pulled away from thinking about what's important for our community, because that's why we do this. That's what we were either elected or appointed to do. And we need to continue to do that. And we need to set a good example for the community and beyond the community as to how to conduct ourselves in government as stewards of our community. So with that intro, we're actually starting with a joint public hearing between the town council and the planning commission on a series of changes to our zoning ordinance. These changes, which are not particularly exciting, but they're important to the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality, who thought we should have these things in our ordinance, asked us to do so, and we entered into an agreement with the Virginia DEQ to make these changes to our ordinance. They really go to when someone's developing a new project, that we assure them and they assure us in writing that they're going to comply with all the things regarding protection of the watershed. So whenever a change is made to the zoning ordinance, we can't just make it. It has to be developed as a draft, go through the planning commission, go through the town council, approve for purposes of advertising as proposed changes. Then it goes out to the public. Then we have a public hearing just like this to say if anyone in the public has anything they want to say to us about it, and they can send in written comments as well. But we give this opportunity for anyone to say anything they like, don't like, whatever about it. And that's all part of the lengthy process that we have to go through for any changes to the zoning ordinance. And we take those requirements very seriously about being very transparent, very open, and giving everyone who's interested an opportunity to speak to any changes we're making. These, and there will surely be others in the future, and there have been some in the past. So with that, I will open up the joint public hearing of the town council and the planning commission on the changes to the zoning ordinance to address the Virginia DEQ corrective action agreement. Those changes have been published. Notice was put in local newspapers for the changes as well. And the purpose of the public hearing is for anyone who's interested to tell the town council and the planning commission what their thoughts are. We take that, it's not a dialogue, we take the input, and then it will be used first by the planning commission and then by the town council to address the changes. So after we have the joint public hearing, then the planning commission will meet here on this meeting and decide what they want to do with the changes. And then later this evening, the town council will do the same. So with that, I open it up to the many people who surely want to voice their views on the proposed zoning ordinance changes. Come one, come all. It's like Jeopardy or something. That little noise. Dun, 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 dun. Kind of like that. How long do we wait?
There are two participants, and if I guess
Okay.
they can raise their hands if they're interested to speak.
Okay. We'll give it a, a minute or so.
Do we know whether the attendees even have the ability to raise a hand? I know we do as participants, but I'm not sure the attendees do. They do?
We have a
Yes.
raised hand, so that's a yes.
Okay. Oh, okay. You're right.
Okay, Mike, you are. You can talk, Mike.
Okay, I was just showing you that I could raise my hand. So outside of that, I don't have any comments. I was told to be here for my use permit. So whenever you're ready to get to that, let me know.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll,
Thanks, Mike.
we'll mute you again.
Very, very helpful. So we proved the principle that in fact people can raise their hand, can speak. I think sometimes when the planning commission and Kathy have done such a remarkable job on these changes, there's just nothing else to say. And that may be why we don't have any comments. So with that, I will make a motion to close the joint public hearing on the zoning ordinance changes. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. And Kathy, do you have your own closing? Do we close and you close, or we all close?
No, why don't you go ahead and close, and then Amanda said she'll briefly, for the next minute or two, switch over to the planning commission members, and we'll vote on the actual amendment, but you certainly can close the public hearing.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. We've waited a while. No one's had any comments. All right, with that, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? Motion carries. All right, so we're good. The next thing in the order of business is the planning commission to meet. I understand the council will be relegated to some other lower standard, and the planning commission will meet and address it. So we turn it over to the planning commission.
All right, since we have a number of planning commission members here and we've got well in excess of a quorum, I would move at this time that we recommend that the changes to Chapter 11 of the code be adopted by the town. Is there
Second.
any discussion? All in favor?
Let me just ask one question.
Sure, ma'am.
Who's the planning commissioner going to be? The individual? Have they been appointed? The administrator?
Oh, the administrator? Well, that's not in this. That was in the enforcement amendment. We were talking about at our meeting, Matt. This is the Chapter 11 changes that DEQ had recommended.
All right.
Any other discussion or questions? Okay, so we have a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, so that part of the planning commission meeting is at this time closed. Thank you all for attending. Amanda, Phyllis, we're ready to proceed with whatever is next on the town council agenda.
I'm promoting everyone back.
Okay.
Bill, you're muted.
I unmute him and then he mutes himself back.
There he goes.
You yourself? I did not do that. All right. Let's move on to the regular order of business. There's not a whole lot going on this evening, which is good. It's quiet. Let's try and move through quickly. So first thing is the report of the town clerk minutes.
I had one substantive revision received to the minutes from Steve for the ARB section of the minutes to clarify that it is the town council's province to determine what constitutes a campaign sign. I made that change and circulated it and did not receive any further comments.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as revised.
Second?
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Anything else from clerk as clerk?
Just a reminder that it's just about time to renew golf cart registrations. So I'm going to be ordering plate decals and sending out notices to everyone before the end of this month. And so they'll be due on January 1st.
Amanda, how many of those do we have?
Maybe about 12. We usually get like maybe one additional golf cart per year.
That shouldn't take up a whole lot of time for only 12.
Right.
Yes, so it can be difficult. I think the difference is we implement that, right? As opposed to the car tax thing,
Yes.
car, whatever. Okay. What happened to Reagan?
I think he disappeared.
Okay, cool.
He's not on as an attendee or a panelist.
Okay, can someone send him an email?
I'll text him.
We still have,
Okay.
we still have a quorum, right? So.
Yeah, we're good to go, but I don't want him to miss anything if he, is wondering what's going on. Okay, treasurer's report. You're muted. There's Reagan. Marilyn's unmuted now. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so I wanted to do a quick overview of what we need to review. The regular treasurer's report for October 31. I also have a COVID-19 detailed report that has a calculation projection of the amount of money that we need to decide or come up with a plan for spending. I also resubmitted to you all the draft FY19 audited financial statements that I presented last month. And hopefully we'll be able to get those approved this month. Additionally, I submitted the record of the time for the COVID financial administrator, along with an estimate based on just average hours for November and December for your consideration. Once those are the time records for both positions are reviewed and approved, then we would ask that the mayor would sign as approval on the documentation, so that we have that documentation for the program. So those are the overviews. The cash balance report for the end of October reflects $1,323,920.43. Proposal that we have with regard to our CDs at United Bank is also part of the report. We have all of our CDs at United Bank are going to be coming due November and December. We have two of them maturing on the 17th of November, and then we have a set maturing on the 4th of December and the 8th of December. That's a total of $820,000. These funds, of course, are secured in accordance with the Virginia Security of Public Deposits Act, and so it's okay that they're in the same bank. And we do have a proposal from our bank manager that is part of the actual cash balance report that is submitted within the financial statements file. What they're recommending is that because they're not anticipating any increase in rates for the next 2 years, they're recommending that if the town does not anticipate any major projects or investments in the near future, that the town would he would recommend that the town renew the CDs for a 25-month term at 0.35%. They feel they're recommending that because they feel like the rate isn't going to go up and certainly could go down. Their secondary recommendation was to deposit the proceeds into the super money market, which is currently at 0.25%, if the town felt the need to keep those funds more liquid. So the current rates that are available, the 9-month no penalty CD is 0.20, the 7-month is 0.25, 13-month is 0.30, 25-month is 0.35%, and then there's 37-month at 0.40.
No, I'm doing something else.
So that would, I guess we should wait till maybe Bill comes back, or Are you there? Okay. Do you want to review this and have a motion on this now or after the regular reporter?
You're muted, Bill.
We can act on it now. I understand we have something like $820,000 in CDs that are maturing now. Rates are ridiculously low. There's a money market that's currently at 0.25%. But that presumably could change over time, or we could invest it for a period of months at the same 0.25%. I don't see the idea of investing for 2 years to get an extra 0.1%. But we need to decide what to do with it, either money market or into CDs. The rates are all obviously extremely low. Thoughts, council members?
Yeah, I would do whatever is easiest. We're talking about a very, very minor amount of money at this point. We're going to spend more money on Maryland's time than what we get from this. So let's just do what's ever easy.
I think it's definitely better to keep it in CDs since the super money market can fluctuate.
Okay.
I'm curious if there are any big expenditures that are coming up with Streetscape or any other projects that would require.
At this point, Streetscape would probably be spring of 22 at the earliest.
What was that again?
I said Streetscape expenditure for construction would be spring of 22 at the earliest.
Oh, spring of 22. Okay.
Yeah, we won't be in this coming cycle for construction season.
And there is 104.5 in the super money market now that provides for quite a flexibility.
Just do what's easy. Come on.
Yeah, money market's easy. It's a difference of a few $100.
Yeah.
I think the difference is if it's money market, it could go even lower and you'd actually have to pay attention to it. The CD, you don't. But that's it. Otherwise, I think the rate is literally the same, the 9-month rate. Marilyn, do you have any thoughts on this?
I would probably go the 13-month at 0.3, and then at least you have a year and you can see if there's any improvements rather than the 2-year.
These have the ability for us to take funds out without penalty or close them out without a penalty.
Just the 9-month, and that would be at 0.2. So that would be even lower than the money market.
So do you want a motion, Marilyn? What do you want? Do you want the CD?
I think that would be the best decision. I mean,
Okay, I make a motion
for money market
to make that. I make a motion to do that at the rate that Marilyn has suggested.
That's the 13-month?
Yep.
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? Let's do a roll call vote. Holloway, aye.
F. Ross, aye.
I'll lie.
Poe, aye.
Klein, aye.
Green, aye.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. So the COVID-19 detailed report that I submitted in the financial report is reflecting the 40,000 in the IDA grants to the applicants, to the small businesses. It's also reflecting the amount for the town spending of the COVID as of October 31st at $2,015.98. An estimated Zoom cost for November and December at $183.66 is estimated in there. That would leave remaining CARES Act funding for allocation in the amount of $7,382.71. That's assuming that we would keep the 10,000 that was returned to the town by one small business because they received a Fairfax County grant. That would, this is assuming that we would be able to utilize that grant as a grant rather than as a general spending.
Let me clarify that for a minute,
Okay,
Marilyn, just so
thanks.
that people know what's going on.
Yeah.
One of the things we had to negotiate and deal with the county on the CARES grants was that we had most of the town businesses also applied for county grants. Under the CARES rules, you can't get 2 CARES grants. So in the contracts that we wrote with the people who got the grants and the agreements we reached with the county, should the county grant somebody from Clifton a grant who has already received a grant from Clifton, we had to get the money back. That is exactly what happened. Trummers was given a grant by Clifton, and then subsequently we found out, and Fairfax County has been very good about communicating back and forth with us on all this, that Trummers got a grant from the county. I contacted Trummers. We waited until the county money actually appeared. Once it did, Trummers gave me a check for $10,000 to return the money that we had given them. I have given that to Marilyn, and presumably Marilyn has redeposited it in the account.
Right.
So now we have $10,000 that we didn't expect to have, okay? And the question is, what do we do with it? The proposal, the only easy proposal, and I don't know whether we can do that. We have to, I wanted to talk to the council before I started maneuvering with the county about this. The only easy way to deal with this at this point, because we're already in November and all of this has to be done by the end of November, is to allocate an additional $3,333 to each of the grantees who have already received it, who have already qualified to get grants from the town. We could do that, I think. There is no limit theoretically on what the town grant should be. The county has a limit of $10,000 for any business with under whatever it is, 25 employees or 10 employees, but we didn't put any employee limitations on it. So theoretically, we could assign those monies. The alternative is we put it back in the town council amount in the budget. And at the end of December, if we haven't spent it on something else, we give it back to the county. So those are our options.
Wouldn't we would need to give it back by the end of November, right?
Probably.
Yeah. And they're, the county's actually asking for us to give them a report by the end of this week that will let them know what our plan is for whether we would anticipate spending all the money. And if so, what our plan is as to how we're proposing to spend it. So they wanted it actually on Monday. And I told them there's no way I could do that. But, you know, that we would be talking about it at the town council meeting. And so obviously it's a report that is giving them a little heads up of what to expect, but the formal report and any refund of cash is due at the end of the month on the November 30th. So,
And also, we have a slight difficulty in that as soon as the council tells me what they want to do, I have to get in touch. If we choose to try to distribute this money to the existing grantees, I have to talk to the grantees as to whether they have documentation that would cover that amount, because one of the things we have to do is maintain full documentation that they have actually spent the money on things that qualify under the CARES grants. So I would have to talk to each of them about that as well.
and we'd have to amend their grant agreement.
And we would have to amend the grant agreement. I mean, the easiest thing obviously is to not spend this money and either give it back to the county, or if there is something that the council itself or the town itself can spend the money on that is legitimate and fits within the categories that are allowed, that would be the easiest thing. But I don't know how we could do that.
Might there be a combination of both?
Well, we already have, what is it, Marilyn, $7,000 in the slush fund that is in the town's account. And I don't think we've even figured out how to spend all of that.
I see.
So I'm just looking for guidance from the council on this.
I think your instincts are right, Steve.
On,
It's probably easiest just to not spend the money and send it back to the county.
Yeah.
Or wherever it came from, county, I think, yeah.
I think that the county would not only like that, but it would make their investigations of us a lot less strict, shall we say.
Not that they're gonna uncover anything, but it
No.
certainly, yeah. I agree with you.
And at least that's the more reliable plan to do, because then we could commit to it, know the funds, and tell the county what we're doing.
Okay.
You want to make a motion, Steve?
Yeah, unless anybody else has any feeling about this. No, I would make a motion that the monies that have been returned to the Industrial Development Authority, the IDA account, be put back in the town council, the town's account, and be prepared to be returned to Fairfax County.
Second.
And to be specific, is that the amount of $10,000?
Well, it would be it would be the amount that is returned to the account. Whether we have more than that we haven't spent is something that Marilyn will have to compute after we talk about the next issue, which is the expenditures that we would make for Maryland and Amanda.
But the amount returned from the IDA, wouldn't that just be the
That's
grant?
$10,000.
Okay. Okay, there's a motion and a second. Do roll call. Holloway, aye.
Efros, aye.
Aye.
Oh, aye.
Line aye.
Green eye.
Okay, so that takes care of that IDA grant money coming back. We still have the question of what to do with the 7382 we have.
Yeah.
Which we have on the agenda to talk about separately.
Right. Okay. So just wrapping up briefly the rest of the highlights from October that are included in the financial report. Let's see here. Some of these notes are very similar to the last month. I'll just try to get the big things. We received sales tax for August late this month at $2,966. We also have year-to-date. So far, we have received motor vehicle fees from Fairfax of $3,391. We did disperse the fire funds pass through to for the fire programs in the amount of $15,000 in October. Community Hall Electric was $491. We had legal fees of $175 for October. The cost of our joint public hearing was $286. For town services, we had mowing of $450, trash collection of $374. And we also had seasonal lawn maintenance in the amount of $1,450, which I have been communicating with Bill about. And that is actually, it's a seasonal work that was done. Usually, I believe it happens once in the fall and once in the spring. It's the date on the invoice was October 12th by Green Valley Landscaping. It was for mulching the park. That cost of that was $700. And then it was the core aeration and reseeding of the park and the flag post area for $750. I'm pretty sure those are the rates that I recall from the last years that we've done it. But I'm happy to ask Donna Netchard for additional explanation to, if there's more questions on it. And I won't, hold the check. I did cut the check, so it's included in the report. But I will not have the check signed by Patrick until you all are comfortable with it.
So this is covered in the budget, this aeration, seeding, mulching?
Yeah, it is.
And the reason we're talking about this is Marilyn earlier asked me if it was okay if we paid this invoice, and asked what it was for, and she said, well, it's from this company. And I said, but what is the work and when was the work performed? And she knew the date of the invoice, but she didn't know what the work was for. And so she's followed up to try to find out what it is we're being asked to pay for. And that's the new information, that it's not grass cutting. It's, I guess, annual seeding and aeration of the park.
Yeah, I think it's seasonal. I think it's twice a year. And those items that I told you are actually on the invoice. They are listed on the invoice. I just wasn't apparently clear enough.
We spend $3,000 a year on aerating and seeding the town park.
And mulching.
What do you think they're mulching? I don't think they're mulching the.
I think lawn maintenance category is like $5,000.
They also mulch under the
in the budget.
The playground equipment. They do a big project.
But did they do that? Did they do that?
I don't think that's part of this, though.
I don't think that's. I don't think that's this either. So I really am curious what mulching they do here. I don't know. I mean, it's worth trying to get some idea of what this work.
I'll ask. I will ask Donna to just give a summary of exactly what's included or what the basis of the cost estimate is.
And especially if it's twice a year, so $3,000, and then maybe another $5,000 for. I recall we have the annual grass mowing contract, and we re-up that.
There's
I didn't think about.
There's a mowing contract, and then there's the other services that same company does. And I'm actually not sure we have an actual contract. I don't think I have it anyway. But he hasn't, apparently he's been doing the same thing all this time and hasn't increased the rates. But I can ask Donna for a summary or something that will provide it. Maybe it's not seasonal, maybe it's only in the fall and not in the spring.
It would be helpful to get a report back, perhaps even next month, on what's in the budget.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And
I can also do a report of what the details are that we spent last year, if that would be helpful.
Yeah, on this work. Like if it was
On
grass
the,
mowing, I would have no question, but this,
on the other types of landscaping work. Be happy to do that. Okay, so those are the highlights of the transactions, and I think we've covered everything with the exception of the audit. You know, the financial audit draft for the FY19.
okay, we got the final audited statement. I looked through it. It looked fine. Everybody's had it for a little while now, but we have to actually approve it. So it's the results of the audit from the auditors we hired to do an annual audit. They said everything looked fine. The one question I did have, to which the answer was not awesome, was the IDA has $45,000 in, quote, their account, which is part of our account, but technically theirs. That's apparently been sitting there for 5 years. I don't know. And
Not a bank account that it's in that's separate. It's just on the balance sheet.
yeah, but it means we can't spend it because it's the IDA's money. And I asked the auditors, what is this $45,000 for the IDA? And the auditor said, it's the IDA's money. It was not helpful at all. I don't know why it's there. I don't know why it's trapped there. I don't know why the IDA would need $45,000 allocated to it that we cannot touch. It's not changing what we do because we don't need that money right now, but having that money allocated over to another group that we can't use with no particular purpose or reason gave me some concern. Thoughts about that, Steve? You have any thought on that?
Just, I would check with Brant. I mean, I'm on the IDA board some time ago, and this may be from some time ago. There was a feeling that you had to put a certain amount of money in the IDA account in case there were legal fees that the IDA incurred that were separate from what the town incurred. And so some money may have, and I'm speculating here, some money that was collected by the IDA when the IDA was doing the development grant was left in the account for that purpose. Now, Bill, you're probably right that it's now time that we could distribute it over, but I'll ask Grant.
Okay. Thanks. If you look in the report, you will see that in there. I do not doubt the auditor that in fact there is that money and it is allocated there. So it's on.
This is separate from the 40,000 that we put in and took out for CARES, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And this is something that was set up on the balance sheet as interest that was earned on the at the time when we had the bonds, right?
Yeah.
When we were doing that development. Yeah.
I'll ask Grant.
Okay. All right. So that was the only notable thing in there. And again, it wasn't a problem with the audit. It was more, why is that there? So I guess the audit was helpful in that regard. So the audit itself was fine. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the final audited financial statements for the year ended June 30, 2019.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay.
Okay. Thank you. And I think that's all I had. I'm sorry it took so much time.
And don't forget to approve the treasurer's report.
Oh, the actual report, right?
Make a motion to approve the treasurer's report as submitted.
Second. All right. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay. That's it. Okay. Then we have citizens' remarks. No citizens indicated interest in giving any remarks. Takes us to the Planning Commission. That means you have to make Kathy live.
Am I live or dead?
Memorex.
I guess you can hear me. All right. The Planning Commission reviewed the application for a final construction use permit for Mike Mullen and his wife for construction of their barn located at 12800 Chapel Street. It was confirmed that construction was complete and in accordance with the requirements of the preliminary use permit. All required county permits were obtained and the barn was built as required by the certificate of appropriateness, copies of which were reviewed by the Planning Commission. So the Planning Commission recommends that a final use permit be approved.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the recommendation of the Planning Commission to issue a final use permit for the barn at 12800 Chapel Street.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Okay.
The Planning Commission spent the rest of the time reviewing the draft ordinance change for the enforcement provisions to the code, adding civil penalties for violations, and came up with a list of just a few questions that we will pose to the town attorney, and based on her response, I think it will we'll be able to move fairly quickly on finalizing our review and coming up with some recommendations for the ordinance for the town council. So that was the second thing we did. And then of course, the third thing, and I don't know when the town wants to do it, is obviously voting on the changes to chapter 11 of the town code that were required by the Department of Environmental Quality.
We can do that. I'll make a motion to approve the changes to the zoning ordinance to address the Virginia DEQ corrective action agreement as those changes were advertised.
Second.
The motion and a second. We'll do a roll call vote. Unless anybody wants to discuss it, do a roll call vote because it is a change to the zoning ordinance, and therefore it's appropriate to make sure that the approval is crystal clear and transparent. So Holloway, aye.
Ross, aye.
McDonald, aye.
Oh, aye.
Klein, aye.
Green, aye.
Okay. Kathy, is that it?
Yeah, that's it for the Planning Commission.
Bill, do you want any comments now on this draft proposal?
Yes, in this regard. Okay, there are a couple things going on here. The idea is to put in a schedule of fines so we don't have to go to court to figure out how to fine somebody at what level. It will be duly advertised and everyone will be on notice, and then we'll be able to do it without having to go back through some additional process. That's the concept, okay? The Planning Commission has identified a number of questions they want to ask the town attorney, like, does it really have to be a specific list? Can it just be general? If it is a specific list, can we not put it in the ordinance and just have our own sort of thing that we do on our own and add to and subtract to? And questions like that of the nature of what is the required structure? Assume, for example, that the attorney comes back and says it needs to be a specific list. It doesn't have to be an all-inclusive list. You can't think of everything. You don't have to think of everything. Maybe there's some catch-all thing. But if you have things like, I don't know, erecting a sign fine that is not approved by the ARB. Building something for which you have no use permit, things that are very clear, that we have those expressly set forth with a specific fine associated with them. That's at least part of this effort. Then the additional question will be to everybody, Planning Commission, ARB, and others, what is it we would like to see on that list? What are the things that we expect? Because there are a few things that come up over and over and over again. Those are the kind of things we want to list. Don't forget about this. Don't forget about this. Don't forget about this. The template that we had, which is from the town of Herndon, it's right out of their code, has a whole lot of stuff in it that probably isn't as relevant to us as it is there. We're not required to put a bunch of irrelevant stuff in there, but rather, what are the things we think ought to be included? So that's a real question. So Steve, all of these things are currently being reviewed, discussed, and investigated. So now's a good time, if you've got some thoughts, to put them on the table as the development of this new code section is taking shape. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, Kathy sent it over to me and I read through it and had a lot of questions about it, primarily, and it may be because it is clearly boilerplate from somebody else. It's clearly Herndon's, it's not ours.
Right.
And I guess the fundamental problem I have with it is there's no procedural explanation of how it all works. It says, well, if the town administrator who is working for the town this is no longer the zoning administrator's job, it is the town council's job, but then the town council can give authority to the zoning administrator to send a letter, let's say. And the zoning administrator sends a letter and says, this appears to be out of whack. You're not complying with whatever it is on the list. And they continue not to comply. The language that I read doesn't say anything about who makes the decision that they haven't complied, who decides when to send a notice of violation, where is there a method for appealing, who do you appeal to? None of that is in there.
Well, Steve, those are some of the appeal question is one of the ones we're going to ask the town attorney, because we're not really sure, should all the appeals go to the BZA? Should they come directly to the town? So that clearly is out. As far as the procedure, this is just a first draft that was done to take out some of the glaring errors that wouldn't apply to us from Herndon's ordinance. And since we're drafting it, if you have ideas or whatever or concerns, maybe you could share them by email so those can all be incorporated in the second draft, because those are really good questions, especially the procedure. How does the procedure work? Because that's something that the town has to decide on. That's not something I think it can be done anyway, from using your zoning administrator or having the town council make the decision. So that would just be very helpful. Those are all things we discussed at the Planning Commission meeting, but we didn't have any solutions for yet, and we're going to be taking it up next month. So anybody who has ideas.
Yeah, I'd like to go over it with you and maybe Patrick, who reads these things very, very carefully, I know, and because, for instance, and I don't want to spend too much time on this now because we'll work it out after the meeting.
Well, one of the things,
but the BZA giving the example of this would go to the BZA, you don't want that to happen.
well,
We have a BZA that as soon as it starts, it feels it needs to have an entire separate proceeding with its own lawyer. We're talking about a $200 fine that's going to cost us $5,000 in legal fees. That that doesn't work.
Steve, that's not, it may not be a choice. That's why we're asking the town attorney as to whether or not there's a requirement. Because if you read this, the revised state statute on the BZA, it seems to include exactly this sort of thing. Though the process may be entirely different than when the BZA acts in reviewing the variance. I don't know, but those are one of the things.
Okay.
And I'm happy to share the email that we're going to send in the next day or two to the town attorney. And if you have some things you want to put in or additional questions, we can cover them too.
Okay.
And it's nice to have somebody interested besides the members of the Planning Commission. I personally think if you can send us an email and if you've got time to come to the next Planning Commission meeting and talk about it, that would be really helpful because then we can move this along in a much quicker fashion and we'll make sure we're really canvassing folks' ideas.
Okay.
I think if you have an idea of how you feel the process should work, violations are brought to, potential violations are brought to the council. The council authorizes the zoning administrator to investigate such and report back with a proposal. The council decides whether there has been a violation and the council assesses the fine off of the list. And an appeal goes to the district court of whatever it is, that's what we'd like, that we should tell the attorney that's how we'd like it to work. Can it work that way? Instead of an open-ended question about what processes might it follow, because I don't know where that'll go with our attorney. I'd rather say, here's what
I wasn't going to do that. I was specifically going to ask about the BZA in the context of a section of the state statute talking about zoning violations being appealed to the BZA. Did that mean everything had to be, or did we have a choice to do something different, go to court or go to the town council?
But I hear two other things. Steve's saying, look, my view of this was a schedule of fines. So we didn't have to go to court to assess a fine.
Right.
And we would know the fine. It's $100 per day for a sign violation. Okay. That didn't address how do you get there? Somebody's got to say there might be a violation and somebody's got to investigate it and somebody has to make a determination there is. That process, Steve has asked about that process. A good question. It makes sense to have that as part of this. So this little schedule is just part of the overall picture. Steve's introduced the rest. Why not ask that question too? I think Steve wants those asked. And then on the appeal, if we really would rather it didn't go to the BZA for the many reasons that it's not like the court, it's there, it's ready to go. There's a process. They have judges and all that. Cool. Whereas the BZA, you got to go like call people and get them ready to go. It's not an ideal process. Can the fines levied under this process, can the appeal process be to the, whatever the thing is called, the, county circuit court? There's some name for that low level court. And I know that eventually stuff goes there from the town. Can it go there or must it go to the BZA?
Exactly.
And so I'd like to make these more in the guise of proactive, like here's what we'd like.
Right.
Can it be this way?
I don't think anybody's anxious for any appeals to go to the BZA unless we're required to do so by state law.
Yeah, and the
This
fact
is just
is,
to clarify that.
if that was the case for the process, it would probably change what we would do and how
Okay,
we would
well,
use it.
that's why I think it's helpful to find out as soon as possible.
Yes, so Steve's process questions.
I'll work with Kathy on this.
Okay.
We did circulate this, Kathy, through the ARB. I don't know if you got any feedback through Royce.
I haven't yet. Hopefully I will because he's got a whole bunch of stuff under ARB that.
The one observation that I had is the list from Herndon was pretty comprehensive. And it appeared to me that if some of the things that on there remained on there, which I think are good things to have, do they have to tie back to a statement elsewhere in the code that says you can't do this, so that if you do this, there's a fine for this? But in our case, I think if we grabbed that list, there would be things on there that would say it's $100 for whatever, parking on the grass or whatever. But our code doesn't say you can't park on the grass. That's just an example. Maybe it does, but I don't know if there's a crosswalk to make sure that everything that has a fine has a prohibition someplace.
That's right. I mean, you would need that. Exactly.
Okay.
Mhm.
Those are things I'd take out of the list. If it's stuff we don't have, it's not illegal here in town, then I wouldn't fine
Right.
people for it.
Right. That would be good.
That makes the list start to get smaller. Yeah.
Well, agreed. No, the list, and by the way, we had a list from 2 years ago from Herndon that was much
Mhm.
smaller and more focused.
Okay.
And this new list is like 3 times as long. So I actually don't think that's very useful personally. I'd like to have a smaller, more focused list that people know what's coming their way. And it wouldn't be a tool we'd use all the time, but it would be a tool we'd use for the things that do come up pretty frequently that we'd have available. And what we're exploring between Steve and Kathy and Reagan is, can we make this into a usable tool or not? Other people seem to believe so, Herndon and others, but can we do so? So, and again, focused questions, which I know you know, so the attorney knows what we're trying to get to.
Right. And the other part of the equation was for chapter 10 and chapter 11, which don't have clear-cut violation requirements, because adherence to those chapters is what's important. You need to meet the requirements of the CBLAT ordinance. You need to meet the requirements of the subdivision ordinance. And if someone's not meeting them, you don't want to necessarily give out a fine. What we're required to do under state law is to make sure the process is followed. So our interest there is trying to find out, can we require a bond for the preliminary use permit to make sure these things are happening as part of our enforcement of these 2 chapters.
We also have the question that came up, I think, in the last meeting about sign violations that the ARB wanted the council to enforce, and it was pointed
Right.
out the
That's right.
ordinance actually says the ARB, who was upset with the town for not taking any action, it's the ARB is supposed to
Right.
take action under the
Well,
ordinance.
Royce was pretty clear. He did not want to enforce the ordinance.
But he's the only one who can under the,
Right. You would have to change the ordinance saying the responsibility goes to whoever, the town council or the zoning administrator, which obviously would be pretty easy to do in context of adding in the enforcement provisions, if that's the direction the town wants to go in.
Yeah, but
okay.
again, and I'll work this out with Kathy in terms of questions. There are 2 issues there. One is enforcement and the other is finding.
Right.
You have to find that there is a violation before you can enforce the violation.
Exactly.
And those may be 2 different groups.
They may be, but honestly, if the ARB is the enforcement entity for signs, I'd be awfully surprised if the town council did the investigation and findings, and then the town council turned it over to the ARB to do enforcement. I don't know why it was written that way, but my guess is with that the ARB determines whether they think there's a violation.
No,
of
it's
their
always,
thing.
it's been that way for years, Bill. It's always been in the ARB ordinance that the ARB enforces. And I don't think anyone changed it when they changed the sign provisions. No one changed the enforcement provision, which has been that way since the mid-'80s.
Yeah, and it certainly seems the ARB has no interest in actually enforcing its requirements.
That was pretty clearly stated when this came up at one of the town council meetings, yes.
And the ARB is not happy with the council not doing the enforcement, but we can't. It's the ARB. So if we want to change that, it'd be something we need to change as part of this effort.
Right, exactly.
I don't necessarily have a problem with it all being with the town council. But it would be something we'd have to change because right now it's the ARB.
But again, it's a question of if you did it that way, it means the ARB is assigning and collecting money as a fine. I'm not sure that works right.
I agree. That's why we're talking about it. It's something that's how it currently is, but it doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense to do it that way. And if we have a process set up where things are brought to the council has a zoning administrator, somebody goes and investigates, they come back with a proposed finding, the council then makes a determination of a violation, the council picks a fine off this list, and away we go, and they can appeal it to the Circuit Court of Fairfax County or something. There's your process, assuming the attorney says that would work. And then we make that a clear process. Everybody knows exactly what the process is, and it applies to everything, including the sign ordinance stuff. So we don't have the ARB somehow out there doing enforcement as well. Okay. It won't happen overnight, but it's something that's perhaps overdue, and I think it's important to try to get our arms around it.
Right.
Okay. All right. What else?
That's it for the planning commission.
Okay. Zoning administrator.
I have two properties to update you on tonight. They're both residential. The first one is 7184 Clifton Road. That's the new home that has been built by Mr. Guglielmi. There are two aspects to ensuring compliance of that project. The first half is the ARB and the second half is the Planning Commission. So as far as the ARB is concerned, Mr. Guglielmi has been given a deadline of November 15th, by which time he is required to walk on site with at least 2 ARB members to inspect each of the features that has been discussed as violations and show that they have been remediated according to what was agreed that he would do. And after that, he would be required to attend the November ARB meeting and obtain a final COA for that project. So that's the ARB side. The Planning Commission side of it, he had been informed that he needed to submit a new use permit application for the revised site plan grading for the backyard slope and the re-engineered retaining wall. He did submit that to us last night, and it has been sent over to the town engineer for review. And the plan is for Mr. Guglielmi to attend the Planning Commission's November meeting in order for the Planning Commission to review and possibly make recommendations to the Town Council at the December meeting for the approval of, I guess, a preliminary use permit for the regrading of that slope. So that review would not be for the final use permit. The final use permit and the Fairfax County occupancy permit would be sort of the third final part of this process, and hopefully we're getting closer. But what's been communicated to Mr. Guglielmi is that he needs to fulfill all of the requirements of the ARB and all of the requirements of the Planning Commission. He needs to go through all final inspections for the county. He needs to pay all of the fees that are required for these reviews and applications. And then at that time, the Planning Commission would recommend that he be approved for a final use permit for the entire project. And hopefully at that time, the town would sign off on the occupancy permit for Fairfax County. So that's the progress that we've made so far with that.
Just let me give an update to the council. So the story here is this developer built a spec house next to Melissa's, and it was approved by the town, the grading plan, the architectural design. When he built it, he didn't build what he represented he would build. It was close, but there were a number of things that weren't right. You know, plastic railings and stuff like that on the house. So things that just weren't right. And then he had a bunch of grading issues, so he just regraded the property, which is supposed to come back to the Planning Commission. All things that are eminently doable, but they weren't done. At the same time, the town always incurs costs with our town engineer for this sort of development. And I think it took something on the order of a year to get him to pay the invoice from the town engineer. So there's been a history here of getting the developer to do what he's supposed to do. After much work, he's agreed to make certain changes to the structure that the ARB has agreed to. And he's agreed to come into the planning commission with whatever the new grading is and get the planning commission, the town engineer to sign off on that. Okay. So that's the backdrop. Why is he moving now? Well, apparently he's got a contract to sell the house. The problem is the people can't move in until he has an occupancy permit, which the county won't give him because there are all these open issues. So he seems more motivated to get this done. And he came to me and he came to Royce and Amanda and he said, how about I give you a little money and you sign off and say everything's done? How would that be? And, you know, I talked to Kathy, who wasn't that sanguine on the idea, and Royce, who was a little more sympathetic to it, but it would have to be done right. And I ultimately went back and I said, look, we don't have a process for this. We would have to negotiate an agreement. I don't want to hire an attorney to negotiate the agreement to do it. If we did so, you would have to, and he said he could give us a bond or his word of honor or something, that he would have to give us a cash escrow that would be enough that if we had to hire a third party to do the work, if he didn't, because otherwise you'd just give us the money and walk away, that we could do it ourselves, and we certainly wouldn't want to. So I was thinking $40,000, $50,000 cash, perhaps, that he would put up. We'd probably need $10,000 for the attorney to negotiate the agreement, and it could take a month to go through the negotiation. I said, if you're interested in this, I'll bring it up with the council, but it might be better for you to just complete the work instead. He did not respond at all. But just giving you guys the background, because one of the people on our team thought it might not be a bad idea to have this kind of process. The problem is, it's one thing to say it, it's another thing to do it, to have all the conditions on when you can draw and what happens, and heaven forbid we have to do the work ourselves. So just so you guys know what's going on in the background, instead we've tried to encourage him to say, get the work done, and we will get the approvals done. But that's the backdrop on this, so you have the context.
What's the driver for the alternate solution? Is it because going through all the approvals will just take a lot more time and you might lose the contract?
Yes.
Is that what the urgency is?
Yeah, he wanted the people who he said were both nuclear scientists, which I found to me was persuasive.
There's too many of those in town already.
Too many, not enough, I said. So we were going to have like a club that they were ready to move here from California, and they had no place to stay. It was very sad, and they needed somewhere to go, and they would be a great addition to the town, and shouldn't we help out by getting them in? But the only way for them to move in was for us to just wave our hands and go, everything is approved, even if it isn't. So it was really about timing.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the thinking was, you know, if he had started on this effort 3 months ago, it would probably be done already. So, you know, it's kind of created its own emergency here.
And just to give you some historical perspective, the preliminary use permit for that house was issued in 2015. And he started construction just a few days before it expired 2 years later in the summer of 2017. And I started contacting him about coming back to get a final use permit back in January. So we've been working on this for a really long time, and it's unfortunate that it's taken so long to get some motivation to finish it.
Yeah, but
Has he worked off any of the items? Has he worked off any of the items?
When I drove by, I saw that the railing on top of the side retaining wall has not been changed. That's all I could see. That was the thing that he had agreed to replace with the wrought iron, as was originally approved.
So, yeah, we don't know. We hope that he's making progress, but we have not been going up and doing regular inspections, nor has he been giving us any updates either.
Anyone, has anyone connected with him personally, and talked through?
Yes, many times,
Yeah.
like on a weekly basis,
Yeah.
multiple times a week. People have multiple times been up on the site, meeting with him, meeting with the county, gone through everything. So been up on the site through email, by phone, on Zoom meetings. There've probably been 20 communications with him. The most recent was a couple days ago.
I will remind Royce that it's time to start figuring out a day and a time to do that on-site inspection, because that's coming up in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, what we were hoping is he would call us and say, I've done the first 3 items on the list, come on up and look. And we just haven't heard anything. So we could go up and look around and see whether it looks like anything has been done. And Amanda Royce could certainly reach out and let him know, hey, I'm going to stop by and see how the progress is going. Because I know Royce was a little concerned with the issues that are going on, that if the town starts going up there a lot without being invited and something goes wrong on the property, that the town could be blamed for whatever it is. So I know Royce was hesitant about that, and I think he'd want to let him know about it.
Right.
Okay.
Any other questions before I move on? Okay. The other property that I have an update for is 12752 Chapel Street and the lot next door, which is lot 42 still. This is the property that's owned by Mark and Mona Harrington. Just to give Lynn a little background information, the 2 properties were supposed to be consolidated because the detached garage that was built on the adjacent lot was connected to the sewer lateral. And the town has a sewer policy going back decades. And
it's a county agreement with the town. So it's not ours. We can't unilaterally change it.
I actually read that. I thought it was fascinating.
That's great.
And there's a long history behind that, but let me give you just a real quick piece. You know the Canary Cottage, right?
Mm-hmm.
That your friends, the people that are there, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a front building, a house, and then there's a back building. Those were originally 2 lots,
Mm-hmm.
where somehow split where the swimming pool was. And when they tied the back into the sewer system through the front of the house, they were required by Wayne Nickham and the council to consolidate those lots as part of doing that. So this has happened, and Pat Klein has gone through the same thing. Many people have gone through this, where you cannot build a new building on an empty lot and connect it into the sewer system. It's strictly forbidden. However, if you have an adjacent lot and you combine them into one consolidated lot, now it just becomes an outbuilding on that lot and you can connect it in. That's the issue here. So Amanda.
Right. So the lot consolidation approval is always handled by the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission approved their application to consolidate their lots almost exactly 3 years ago, last month. But when we were doing our review and looking over their records to review them for a final use permit for the detached garage, that's when we realized that the consolidation of the lots never went through for whatever reason. So we had been in communication with the Harringtons, making sure that they knew exactly the steps that needed to be taken. They said that they were going to do it, but then they found out that there was going to be a delay because of COVID-19. So everything through the county has really slowed down a lot. So it could take several months for the consolidation to actually be finalized and recorded. So what the town council decided back at their September meeting is that in order to ensure that progress is still being made, that they would require that the Harringtons show proof that they have at least filed the required documentation with the county. So there's some specific things like a deed, the signed sealed plat. I'm not sure whatever else. Kathy generated a letter from the Planning Commission indicating the approval. So they're just supposed to file that with the county, and the county should give them a stamped copy showing that it's been filed and return it back to us no later than 2 days ago. So it was a 60-day deadline, and the deadline's passed. Nothing has been received. So I wanted to update you all on that so that you all could decide what's the next step going to be.
And the idea here is they do what they can do. They file it. They've done their part. If it takes the county 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years, 200 years, I don't care. That's not on Mark and Mona. It's not their problem if the county's going slow. They've done all they can do. That's all we're asking, and it sounds like it hasn't happened yet, but you know, there's a lot going on in the world right now, I guess. But we certainly need this to be done. We've been waiting on it for a long time. And much of the documentation, as I understand it, was previously completed. So it's literally just a process implementation issue of somebody going over there and dropping it off and getting it stamped. So that's what we're waiting for them to do. Anybody have any further insight, council members, on this? Okay. Thoughts on how to proceed? I'm not entirely sure why we gave them a deadline of November 2nd. That's crazy.
Just to give them 60 days.
Oh, given that the election's November 3rd and, you know, people are involved with stuff related to the election, it's not a very good deadline for that.
Well, I think that at the time, Bill, that we did that, I had talked extensively with Mona and had gotten the name of an attorney for her so that she could get this process going and have an attorney drop it on the desk and be done with it. And she said that was what she was going to do. So I think we decided 60 days would be plenty for an attorney to do that. Well, it never happened, I don't think. Apparently she decided that the attorney that the Petersons and help me, Kathy. Noonan, thank you. Used was going to be too expensive and too complicated. And then the process just stopped again. And I don't know where to go with this. I mean, seriously, all it takes is getting an attorney to write the deed properly and drop it on the desk and get it stamped. And that's all that the town is asking for. And for some reason, it's not happening.
Okay, thoughts on next steps, council members?
Steve, you're muted.
I know. I was saying to myself, I don't know where you go with this. We have been going around and around in circles for an awfully long time on this. And
Do we have a contact at the county that we work directly with?
I don't know.
I did send a copy of the last letter that I sent. Was sent to someone at the county. Let me look at that really quick.
Well, we had also, I worked with our attorney who has friends over at the county attorney. She used to work there. She had lined people up over there who were waiting for them to come in to take it and file it. So we can do that. What we can't do is make Mark and Mona actually drive over and drop it off. You know, and I don't think we can have the county come to their house and ask for it. But the county, we can get the county ready to go. We have done that. We have paid our attorney to do that. We have got, because originally one of the things was the county didn't know how to do it, was one of the ideas. So the county clearly does know how to do it. The county's set up, the county's ready, the county's waiting. That's not where the issue is. So don't know. It's on the front end, and for all we know, they've been busy and haven't had a chance to work on it.
Could we just prepare a letter and send it to them saying, we've noticed that the deadline is passed. Please, within 7 days, report back on what your plans are for correcting this. Just to give them, maybe they forgot about it, maybe they got busy with other things, but just to kind of remind them officially that this is being tracked.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Amanda, is that something you can do?
I can send as many letters as you want.
No, that's not the question is, can you send that letter?
Of course.
Okay.
What do we do after that?
Well, so first of all, we won't know until the December meeting. We, the council, won't know. I mean, we could find out by email from the zoning administrator, but we won't be able to do anything about it. So, Pat, 7 days, you think that's the right time? And it's fine with me.
Yeah, I just know Mona, she does the elections, and I got to imagine her life has been backwards the last few weeks. So
Yeah.
just as a polite way to remind her, look, this needs to be resolved. You know, the elections will hopefully be over in a couple of days, and to get back on track with it. But I think after that, it's got to be a more hard official stance from the town.
Okay, so we ask 7 days from the day the letter goes out, okay? To get back to with what the plan is. So is that what you were saying?
Yeah, just to find it, remind them that this is outstanding officially, and find out what their actual documented plan is to get this correct.
Or advise us at, when it will be resolved. Do we want to say anything in the letter about, planning to take further action at the next council meeting, which is why we're giving that deadline? Or I'd like to hear back from her so that we have information to make a decision on further action at the next council meeting. What I don't want to have happen is get back at the next council meeting, we haven't heard anything, which I think is what Pat's trying to accomplish.
Yeah, do you think that's helpful to add that, or given the particular facts and circumstances here, helpful to add, not helpful to add? I mean, it's true, but that doesn't mean we have to say it.
Yeah, I don't think there's any harm in stating that action will be taken at the next town council meeting.
Just something as simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That sounds good. And then we'll be prepared. We get to December and it's still outstanding, then we may have to take more aggressive action. We're trying to be very, very sympathetic. We're trying to provide as much guidance, as much help, and as much flexibility as possible to allow them to get this done.
And also,
sometime.
And also, it seems to me the letter should make clear that all we're asking for is proof of submission of the documents to the county. We're not expecting the county to act within that time frame.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
All right. Is that it for?
Yep, that's all I've got.
Okay. ARB.
ARB did not meet this month.
Okay. We have a streetscape status.
Just real quick, on the 21st, the additional funding to complete phase 1 as currently designed was officially granted. So we are setting up a meeting with the VDOT folks again to take the next step, and also pressing to get with Novec and the other utility owners. So some good news there. I think the total grant was $453,000, I believe. So that is officially in place now.
Okay, that's good news. I do know that we have a franchise agreement that is outstanding with one of the utilities, that's Verizon, that Steve is working on. So that's another moving piece that's very critical to this. And hopefully the Streetscape committee will be integrating with and working with Steve on that to make sure that that effort is coordinated.
And also that we have two other franchises. Obviously, you're talking to Novak and Cox as well as Verizon. And those two other ones basically say, if you give grants or if someone else gets paid for moving utilities, then we get paid the same percentage. So we have to, I mean, if you're talking to Verizon, you've got to understand that if Verizon is saying we need to get some of the money that you guys have gotten from the state, and you say yes, that applies to Cox and Novak as well.
Yeah. First step is Novak.
Yeah. I had thought, I mean, we talked with Novak close to a year ago, and the way they had read their franchise at the time, they seemed to be willing to assume the cost of their utility moves. And Cox is willing to assume the cost, I think, of their utility moves, so long as nobody else gets paid and they don't get paid. So the issue is Verizon.
Okay, keep moving forward. Good progress. We have funding to make this a viable project. And the irony is that VDOT wants us to spend the money. So this is a project that now that we have money in hand and we have plans in hand, we need to actually move towards getting the project done for real, not just on paper. So that time is coming. So you're thinking 2021 will be putting all those plans into place and 2022 will be, moving dirt?
I think that's probably the best case right now. So if we stay on that path, the first step, well, there's several next steps, but we will have to revisit the design to incorporate the utility removal in the design that exists today. So there will be an action there, and then sequencing the work and figuring out if it's all part of one project or if there's a utility relocation and then the actual road and sidewalk work to follow. So we would just have to work through that. Generally, the utility owners may actually use their own contractors, especially if they contribute this and do it in kind. So we just need to work out all those pieces.
Yeah, and we also still need to work on acquiring easements.
There will be additional easements for this.
Yep, fair point. Okay, very good. So all good. We'll move on to unfinished business, and we've gone through most of the items on here already. We've got a couple items left. The first one is the resolution on renaming the playground park to Harriet and William Harris Park. And Margot wrote this? Yeah, I believe so. Margot put this together. Who's done all the work on history for the town across the board, including this. And the idea was this renaming of the park is about capturing the town's history. And there will be some things coming up over the next few months that'll also be about capturing the last 50 years of the town's history, as opposed to history in 1868, 63 to 68. 20 years from now, people may look at the minutes and wonder what happened and why. And truth be told, there are probably people in the community who might wonder why as well, because apparently not everybody watches these meetings or pays attention to what we're doing. Don't ask me, okay? But with this, which will end up, Amanda, I'd like this to be on the website, not just in the minutes, but somewhere else. And I know Margot's history thing is up there. To the extent that people in the community are saying, why did you rename the park, that we have put this together. So we sent this out. All of you have it. We got input on it. I'm not going to read it. It's very interesting. And this would be, we already did the renaming, but this would be the resolution for the renaming that will go into the record to reflect what we did and why we did it, okay, for posterity. We know what we did, but this is more for the record. So to get the bidding started, I will make a motion to approve the resolution on renaming the playground park to Harriet and William Harris Park.
Second,
Second.
go ahead.
Okay.
Aye.
Is there any discussion about it? It's very nice. We got some input, revised it, sent it out.
The only discussion I would have, Bill, is that I think there is an assumption, or at least a hope, that Reagan mentioned this 2 meetings ago, as a matter of fact, that sometime after COVID, or when it is safe, that we do have a ceremony in the park.
Yep.
At which time this resolution would be given, as well as, I mean, there are lots of people talking about signage in the park, which is great, and I think that's important too. But this, I assume this resolution would also be part of that ceremony or whatever, which probably should be timed to Juneteenth or whenever, but I don't know whether COVID will be done by then.
Yes. Okay, so Amanda, make sure that this resolution is somehow remembered when we get ready for the ceremony, okay, that people are already talking about, and maybe even feed it over to the ceremony group, which is Margot, so she should know what it is. We'll talk about all that in a minute, but first the approval of the resolution. So we have a motion and a second. Do a roll call. Holloway, aye.
Efros, aye.
McDonald, aye.
Screen eye.
Poe, aye.
Line aye.
Okay. Yes, we're going to have a ceremony. The current planning is for June 19th of obviously next summer. Weather should be good. Another proposal was June 12th, which is Loving Day. I thought June 19th was better, although I think June 12th is cool and we can do something for June 12th as well. But the idea is June 19th, ceremony in the park. Now, the ceremony would be planned by the town because it's our sign, our property, and the town history committee would put together the plan for that ceremony, taking input from other people, of course, but just as the town history committee did with the Civil War trail signs. Same thing, it worked out really well. So Margot, who heads up that group, and the committee's been meeting and talking about this, is working on that. Obviously, there's a 7-8 month lead time, so there's a little bit of time for planning, but that's the idea, June 19th. Looking at a couple signs, like the Civil War Trail signs that would talk about the story. The idea being that anyone that sees Harriet and William Harris Park, their first question will be, who's that? And then they'll look down and there will be signs saying, here's who that is. That sign is actually drafted now. The first sign, we're talking about 2 signs, but the first sign's been drafted and will be shared. You know, there's no rush because we're talking about 8 months from now, but starting to get the ducks in a row on this. The history committee's put the wording together for the sign, the graphics together for the sign, and we'll have a proposal out on that. First sign is about Harriet and William Harris, not surprisingly. Second sign is about and the rest, like Gilligan's Island, I guess, you know, all the other people. You had the people who were formerly enslaved, got the land, they sold it off to Marguerite Hetzel, and, you know, so on and so forth. to tell that story as well. So that will be coming your way. The planning is underway. The history committee is meeting regularly. They've got a lot of energy on it. I will mention that we have, the community has a racial justice committee that is not a committee of the town. It's an ad hoc committee, just like if we wanted to have a flower growing committee or a eagle lovers committee or whatever, we can have our own committee. That's cool. There's a racial justice committee, and part of that symbiosis is if it was a town committee, this council would have to be looking over its shoulder going, ooh, I don't know about that. You should do this. We don't want to do that. We want to let them do their thing. And their thing could be controversial at times, certainly could be. But to the extent that it is not a town committee, we do not need to police it. We do not need to manage it. We do not need to try to rein it in. The committee can do what they want. By the same token, because of that, it's a separate committee like the Quilters Group or the Clifton Women's Club, the Lions Club, and other groups, and they don't have any automatic say on what the town does. So that's the functioning that's going on. I think it works because it means that committee's not checking in with us to make sure it's okay. And we don't have to worry about political correctness of whatever is that's going on there. The reason I raised this is with regard to this ceremony that we'd have on June 19th, it could well be that the Racial Justice Committee will have events going on at, I don't know, the Presbyterian Church or the barn or community hall or wherever they choose to rent, talking about whatever issues there might be that might be thought-provoking. And some people might like them and some people might not, but that's okay. I'm a First Amendment guy. That's all right. But those would not be town events, nor would the town be managing them. They'd just be community events that they'd be able to do. So just wanted people to know that we're actively coordinating and managing that with the Racial Justice Committee in a loose way, with the idea being that we're not going to get in their way. They're welcome to do what they want. At the same time, whatever it is they're doing is not a town sanctioned event per se, and that protects the town from being in the middle of what could be a role of trying to bring in new ideas, of trying to be an advocate for new ideas, that the town's not in the middle of that, and at the same time we're not putting the brakes on whatever that group is trying to do. So just background on that, because I know a lot of people have had some misunderstanding, probably not the council, but I guess if people watch this later, they'll get an idea. I don't know how many people have called me and had confusion about that, and in particular with this ceremony coming up. So if any questions? Okay. On to the next thing, natural landscaping resolution. We're going to table that again when the group's ready to come forward. It's November, probably no natural landscaping is growing anyway, so it's okay as a time to table that. The basic idea is when the town rips up plants, we'll take out, I don't know, mandarin orange trees or whatever and plant some Virginia stuff instead. So it's a nice idea. The county has embraced it. We plan to embrace it as well. And the question is, what kind of plants are we embracing? Hopefully not prickly ones. Okay, now on to compensation for staff. That is our last item. Compensation for staff. Get the ball rolling here. We created 2 new positions, the COVID financial administrator and the other. What is your position called, Amanda?
I think it was supposed to be
What?
response administrator.
COVID response administrator? Cool. All
I
right.
can check the last
I think
Last
it was
minutes.
coordinator, but
coordinator.
COVID response coordinator. Okay, cool. All right, so we have these two new roles, and there's no question staff has been busy doing things that they would not have been doing but for COVID-19, and that was the test for me. It was the same stuff you're doing before, you know, that's just part of your job. But if it's incremental effort that you would not have been doing but for COVID-19, it's appropriate for us to compensate the staff. There's a period of time when people were really getting burned out. It's lightened up a bit, which is good because I think December 30 is the end of the funding anyway. But to compensate staff for their heroic efforts in responding to the COVID-19 emergency, which is what we're talking about here, response to the COVID-19 emergency. Our two staff members have been asked to provide documentation of hours they both have, and you've got both of them. Amanda's been providing them as they went along. Marilyn's came in more recently, and we have hours, we have funds, and I'm just going to go through this for you. Amanda has provided documentation of 111.8 hours thus far, plus another 14 hours, 7 hours estimated for November, 7 hours estimated for December. Seems a little light, but that's the estimate. For a total of 125.8 hours estimated through December. You might say, why are we talking about it now? Because the money has to be used by the end of this calendar year, end of December, okay? And then the county came back and said, but any money you haven't spent by the end of December, you need to send back to us no later than November 30th. You know, like Kafka or something. It made no sense. And then they said they wanted to know how much that was that would be spent by December 30th that we would send back by November 30th. They wanted to know yesterday what that amount was. So we're trying to estimate. The county's been great, and we want to work with the county. So what we've done is, what are your hours through October 31? What do you estimate for November? Estimate for December reasonably, and then we look at it and go, sure, looks fine. So Amanda's got 125.8 hours. Marilyn has sent us, I believe, through October 31, 115.29 hours, and estimated another 37 hours for November and December, for a total of 152.31 hours. My one issue, Marilyn, is you've got 2 days in November and then an estimate for November. That seems like it's redundant. So I would probably drop off the 2 days in November and then either reduce November or eliminate the thing. Either take the average or take the specific, but not the average plus the specific. If you remove those and you just go with an average, she's averaged hours over the first however many months, would create 148.06 hours. That, Marilyn, that's 152.31. If you drop the 2 and the 2.25 from 11.2 and 11.3, and you either pick the average or you pick the specific, but not both. Okay, so that's the idea. All right, so we have 125.8 and 148.06. We talked about this several times. There's no clear unquestioned, approved methodology for how you do this, because this is new, and hopefully this will never happen again, and we won't have COVID-2 in a couple years. So what we're trying to do is do compensation in a way that neither the county nor the federal government will come back and go, wow, what? Come on, you gave them how much? That's ridiculous. First of all, you can't just say, here's a lump sum. That's not okay. It has to be tied into actual work that's done in connection with response to the COVID-19 emergency. And this work has in fact been done for that purpose. Question then is dollars per hour, a rate, okay? One idea was take all the time worked in the last 5 years and compensation and average, and I don't know that that's doable. B, I don't know that that's particularly compelling or particularly transparent. The alternative that I've talked about several times, 2 or 3 times already, is we use a flat number like $25 per hour. That for the type of work that's being done here, no one's going to question that as a reasonable rate. If you do that at $25 an hour with these documented hours, you get $3,145 and $3,701.50 for a total of $6,846.50. Okay, which is within our 7,382. It's actually an extra $500 there. Okay, so that's a proposal. Not ready to make a motion, want to talk about this, but the point is we have to do this tonight because of the county's demands. So we've decided what we're going to do. It's done, and we move on. So thoughts?
Just a clarification, Bill, the 7,000 we have left, I'm fine with the 25. I think it's fine and we should go with it. But the 7,000 we have left is in addition to what we have just spent with Daryl, right? On the stuff for the town hall, the
Sanitizers, masks.
sanitizers and all that. That's a separate, that doesn't get taken out of the 7,000, whatever we have left.
That was a different grant, I think. So it's not part of the COVID funds.
The answer is yes. That was a grant that Melissa got. I forget what it's called.
All right.
In Maryland, don't you have to submit records for that or receipts for that? You're
muted.
Sorry, I didn't get any information on how that grant was coming in.
Safety money, right? A safety grant.
Yeah.
Because we talked about,
yeah,
talked about other things, mulch and other.
Yeah, I didn't get any information about anything about the grant.
Where to file, okay.
There was a grant, so we'll have to find out.
All right, but it doesn't, the point is it doesn't relate to this 7,000.
No, it doesn't relate to that.
Yeah, but I want to make sure we don't lose it, because or else it'll just be money that's spent and we don't get it back. I remember it's a grant we got. The money had to be spent by a time certain, and we submit invoices showing we spent the money, and they send it back. They're not going to send us money, and then we spend it.
We get reimbursed, and I believe the deadline is November 30th, if I recall correctly. The total was $500.53. So we went over by 53 cents. I apologize about that, but.
Okay, well, that means we'll submit receipts.
And
Maryland for $500.
Yeah, exactly. There was a $500 grant. So Maryland, you should be able to see the purchase in the Guernsey account.
Right. I'll have to follow up with Gig and get him to send me that invoice, and that should provide the documentation.
Okay. Yeah.
They bill us, and it usually takes a little longer than normal because we have an account with them, but.
Okay. But we might be able to get it from the website. I'll see if I can log in and email it to you.
Okay.
You
Okay.
need to run down the process and make sure you know the process. It's essentially, we were given the grant, you send the receipts into some person somewhere.
Right, so I need to get I need to get the communications about the grant. Who it is, whatever we got in writing saying we got the grant is what I would need to, it probably says right in that document how to draw the money and who to contact.
Okay,
That either went to Amanda or it went to Melissa.
Melissa.
Yeah.
Melissa had all that. There's no question about that.
Okay, I'll reach out to Melissa and see if she has that and can provide it, or if she hasn't yet.
Thanks, Daryl.
Yep.
Looking for it real quick. Grant request. Grant approval. All right, I've got some of this information. I'll forward it out here. What Melissa sent to me.
Oh, great, thank you.
I don't know why it just went to me. Depot. Okay, it's going to say grant request, whatever, safety grant.
You're sending it to me and Marilyn?
I am, yep. And
Outstanding.
one is the thing saying a request, grant request was submitted to VRSA, whatever that is. And,
Oh, that's our insurance,
okay,
Virginia pool, liability pool.
okay. And then another one comes back saying VRSA grant approved. From Melissa to me, money won't go far. From some guy to Melissa and me. Email serves as confirmation of approval. Proof of purchase must arrive by November 30th, 2020. Okay. Blah, blah, blah. Below, oh, there's a whole bunch of numbers, details. Wow. Okay.
Daryl, did you actually receive all the materials that were bought?
No, they haven't arrived yet. They should be here this week.
Okay, we have to also, probably since it's the same deadline, it might be related to the same funding requirements. So we also have to have proof that you have them.
Well,
Delivery, we have to actually have the stuff and have paid for it both.
Maybe we do. I mean, just read what it says. If we don't have to have it, I just want to make sure we send it in and get the money.
Right.
So don't hold yourself to an additional requirement if they are not holding us to it.
Okay.
We'll have it, so there's not going to be a problem.
Okay.
All right.
Daryl, were you able to find any kind of signage? I think Pat was the one that suggested.
I looked through the signage they had at Guernsey, and I wanted to just keep everything with one supplier. And in my assessment, it was overpriced and not something we should spend money on. So what I got were sanitizer stands, sanitizer, and masks.
Okay. I was down at the town hall recently, and I realized that there's no sign on the door telling people that a mask is mandatory inside the building. I wondered what you all thought about. I mean, it doesn't have to be anything fancy. It could be on a, printed up on a piece of paper, like you see outside of other businesses, like the post office, saying, stay 6 feet apart. You must wear a mask when you enter the building. Because I think there are tenants that are using that space, right?
Yeah, and the tenants all had previous rental agreements with us, and they're resuming their activities there. They've all given us assurances that they'll abide by CDC guidelines and state regulations. So
let's put a sign up on the door like everybody else does. Like every place I go in, it says whatever, wear a mask and practice social distancing.
I'm sure we can find a an image of a COVID advisory sign and put it
Right.
on the door.
You can print it out.
You just type it up in Word and hit print. Like that's what I see. That's what I see everywhere. It's not magic.
Yeah.
And tape it up there. And that way, if people are in there grappling or whatever they're doing and there's a problem or cluster, it's not our issue. Okay.
Sure.
We have told people to practice state, whatever, grappling. Okay. So back to our compensation. Okay, so safety grant, no, get the money in, or we won't be getting our safety grant. We get the money. It would be terrible. I would hate to have to pay for our own safety equipment. Okay, so let's get our money. That means we've got the $7,300. These two things together add up to $6,850, which seems reasonable to me. Leaves a little cushion between. Well, it doesn't really, because we basically have to tell them we're going to give them money back, whatever's left.
I would suggest adjusting the rate so that you get a little bit closer to the max.
The only issue with that is that we would have to justify the rate. But, you know, I mean, worst case scenario is they don't like it. Let me see what that would be. It's not very hard to figure out. 7,382.71 divided by 6,846.5 times 25. It would be a rate of $26.96.
I think you would have the county looking at you and saying, you just jiggered the numbers so that you could take the amount of money you've got. I think 25 is a smarter move.
All right, here's something else we can do. If Amanda's numbers are averaged in the same way that Amanda estimated 7 hours for November and December. Marilyn estimated 18.5 hours instead of 7. So, and Marilyn did that by just taking the amount that she had and averaging what it was over the other months. If we were to do the same thing for Amanda, it's a little bit lower. It's a sorry, but we got to get this done, so we're doing it real time. 14, 125, 111.8. 1.8 divided by 0.29 equals times 18.51 equals 18. Okay. So if we were to make the numbers for Amanda 18 instead of 7 for November and December, based on average, if you're following that, okay, which is what Marilyn did. So it would be consistent with that. 18 hours, 36 minus 14 equals, it's an additional 22, 137.8. 137.8 times 25 equals 3445. And then for Marilyn, we'll just use the straight number that she started with, the 152.31 is 3807.75. You guys are probably gonna like this. 3445. Yeah. 3445 plus 7.75 equals, oh, it doesn't equal 11,000. Seven two 52.75. Okay, so if we take Amanda's and we don't use 7 for November and December because she guessed 7, probably guessing low, we use the average of her time. So instead of 7, it's 18. And for Marilyn, we don't do the deduct for the 11.2, 11.3. We just use the straight number she had, 152.31. And you put them in, you get 3,445 for Amanda, 3,807.75 for Marilyn, for a total of 7,252.75 against 7,382. So it will leave $130 left. How about that? You like it?
Yeah, I make a motion that we accept, that we propose a $25 per hour allocation for the 2 new positions and pay both positions based on their time allocation as submitted to the council.
Second.
And I would add, including an estimate for the COVID response coordinator for November and December of 18 hours per month, which is the average.
Fine.
Because that's a change. And Amanda, you'll go back and revise that.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, motion and a second. And let's 36, 22. Anybody want to check the math again? Okay. All right. And so for discussion, my math shows me numbers of $3,445. And let me ask a question. Marilyn, if we do this as part of this, as additional compensation, is there some tax thing? You know, the FICA and all that crap?
Oh, you're right. You're right. Yes, there would be.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you
7.
mean tax thing?
Payroll tax, right?
Yes,
payroll.
it's the payroll tax for Social Security and Medicare.
7% or something different?
It's it would just be it would probably just be the, you know, not for both the employer and the employee. We would have that taken out. Our share of it would be taken out of the check as a tax, but the town's expense share would be what is it, 7.6,
Yeah.
7.6 something, 6. I don't know why I can't think of it at the moment. Probably just too tired. But yeah, that would be, it's 7.6
Percent? We pay 7%?
Yeah, that's between Social Security and Medicare. It's the employer's part of it.
That's an
And
extra.
then the same amount is deducted from the same amount is deducted from the employee's paycheck as a tax.
Okay. That's an extra $507.69. Do we know whether that would be considered an appropriate cost?
I would think so. It's a payroll tax on the compensation.
All right.
Well, that's something you can ask the CARES folks on Monday, right?
Yes, it's actually next,
Well, whenever.
well, I can ask him anytime, actually.
You can call her and
Call
find
her,
out.
yeah.
In either case, we have an extra $10,000 sitting there, so it's covered, and we give them back whatever we have left.
Oh, that's true. Mhm.
Yeah, what it would mean is we'd be giving back about $9,600. It's hard for them to complain too much. They gave us like 50 grand.
That's right.
And look, okay, so we haven't voted on this yet. We're gonna vote. But when we do, I want this to happen because Marilyn, these people want to know what the numbers are and they want their money back. So we got to put this together, which you could send to Steve or something, or Steve and me, and just to look at it.
Sure. Yep, I will.
But then we should say to them, here are the numbers, and then figure out how to send the money back. I'm not sure how that works. Any idea?
Well, I imagine sometimes they came through as a direct deposit. They can sometimes retract it.
How are they going to retract a wire from our account without our approval?
We would probably have to wire it back, but my guess is
we can just
they
write
don't have any experience in people sending money back on the CARES stuff, because this is all brand new for all of us. So we're just going to make it up.
Figure that out.
We'd probably just the easiest thing to do is just to issue a check and send it with a report on November 30th.
All right, so you're going to do the math. You're going to do the math.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to get the documentation. You're going to figure out what the numbers are. You're going to let these people know, because you're going to tell them we've done our final calculations. We have our documentation. We have our estimates. When the dust settled, we had, I don't know, whatever it is. And remember, you've held some money back for Zoom, I think.
Yes. And those would be the expected 2 payments, right, Amanda?
That's cool. So you'll have to document that for them as part of all the documentation. And that means we're going to have $9,600 and some dollars left that we're going to send back to you. How do you want us to send it back? So they know we've done the math. They know we've got the numbers. If they have any questions, they can ask, and they should be happy we're sending the money back. So I want to get that process going over the next, week or so.
Also, don't forget, Marilyn, if you haven't already done it, or you couldn't have, to take the money out of the IDA, the 10,000 out of the IDA account and put it back in the town account.
Yes.
Okay. And the county said they might use this money to give out to other people, which is cool. Like, good luck. People need money. So I want this to happen, and I want it done, so they're not looking at us and we've got all our ducks in a row and we've done our thing. We're not the last person in raising lots of questions. Okay.
Right.
So
I'll prepare a report, send it out so that I can send it. Let's see, this is Wednesday, so that you have what they've asked for by the end of this week, which is sort of what our plan is. And then no later than November 30th, but we can certainly do it prior to that. We'll do the formal, here is the exact things. Or are you saying you just want me to just do it now and send it back now?
Yes. Yeah, I want it done.
Okay.
Steve, what's your thought? I'd rather get this out of our hands, get it into their hands. We're not doing anything else. And I know it's going to take a week or 10 days to do. It's not like it's going to happen tomorrow morning. But I don't want to wait till November 30th. And I don't want them calling up and going, what are you people doing? Show us all your stuff. I want us to look like we're completely on top of this so that they don't ask any questions. We're the good guys.
Okay.
And then at some point, you will distribute funds to yourself and Amanda?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
As soon as we've got the numbers down, I guess, as soon as we've got the numbers down and it's all formal document, here's how much everything is going to cost. And then,
well, and I'd like you to then talk to the county and let them know everything's sorted out. We're going to send the money back. How do you want it back? Now there's a plan in place. And then, you know, when you distribute money to yourself, I would expect it would be to Amanda at the same time.
Of course.
Okay.
Of course, yep. Now,
right.
do you want to just disperse through the end of October or through, and then have November and December do formal time notes or just the whole thing?
Steve, what's your thought?
I'd do the whole thing. I mean, since the county has required us to do it in this very strange way, we should just do the same thing.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
easier.
It sure is, yeah.
The numbers all match up. The numbers are going to be, like I said, you know, 137.8 times 25 equals 3445. It'll all be very transparent, very easy. Less complicated is better. And I mean, what's the county going to say? Why'd you do it this way? They told us estimate what your expenditures are.
Right.
If they go, what was your basis? The basis is we averaged over the 7 months. I mean, how much better could it get? And the number's like 18 hours. It's not easy or anything like that. Okay. Sorry to go through all that in real time, but we had to, and it had to be done.
Okay.
So we have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, we'll do a roll call vote. And that's to do the final reconciliation we talked about and to pay the Amanda and Marilyn in their role as COVID response coordinator and COVID financial administrator in the amounts we discussed. So with that, roll call vote, Holloway, aye.
Effross, aye.
John, aye.
Oh, aye.
Line I.
Green eye.
All right. Okay, I don't think we have anything else on the agenda, so, which is good. Quiet meeting.
Just a welcome to Councilmember Screen. This is our
Yes,
first meeting.
yeah. First meeting. I hope it went okay. Learned a lot.
Thank you. You tell me.
Yeah, well, a good meeting to start with, because we had to go through a lot of procedural issues about where we're going with new laws, public hearing, how ordinances work, how we fund things. So a lot to see from a process standpoint, because I think some people think all we do is meet once a month and talk about exciting political issues or something, but reality is there's an awful lot of real work that gets done on the blocking and tackling of running a government. And, you know, that's the main thing that we do, and the main thing we're supposed to do, and the main thing the community relies on us to do. A good meeting to see that and how that works. And thanks to everybody for patiently working through it. So, anything else?
Motion
you
to
very
adjourn.
much.
Okay. So motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second. Okay. Motion to adjourn is second. All in favor? Aye.
Hey.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? We're adjourned. See all of you next month, if not sooner.
Thank you.
Very good. Take
Thank
care,
you
everybody.
very much.
Yeah.
Take
See ya.
care.
Yeah.